back, Better Investors, to the BI Breakdown. And today I have with me Mr. Jesse Durham. I'm super excited to be talking to Jesse because he's here, a part of our team, as far as the money multiplier and the cash compound. And we definitely have that relationship and connection. Jesse does the same thing that we talk about all the time, infinite banking, all right? And we're on the same team. So I know when I first came across Jesse, he was talking about kind of how he used it, and I was introduced to him through the Banking Bros. And so I want to introduce Jesse to you guys as well. So Jesse, without further ado, introduce yourself. How are you doing today? And thank you for being on.
What's up, everybody? I'm doing great, Robert. I'm happy to be on here with you and having a conversation about banking.
Got it. And then if you wouldn't mind, I know you started infinite banking, well before myself. Kind of what got you started, and how long has it been for you now?
So I first read R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, in 2015, and I had just launched my first business, my first real business that year. I'd had some side hustles before, but I launched my first real business stepping away from employment with the state of North Carolina in education. I was a high school Spanish teacher. So I was in the middle of launching this business, maybe 6 months in, something like that. And I had a friend just call me, and we talked daily, but he was excited. He was talking about this idea of becoming your own banker, and he was just verbally vomiting on me, essentially, what he had caught on to or what he'd learned so far, and that led me to be able to hear about a live presentation that was going on about an hour's drive away. And I got to go to a presentation. I got to see an introductory presentation. I got to participate in the question and answer afterwards. I got to read the book. Like I said, that spurred me to read Becoming Your Own Banker by Nash. And that's what it looked like getting started, was walking into a room with, but some people that I knew, a bunch of people that I didn't, and hearing somebody talk about the idea that you could become your own banker for the first time. Yep, that's my favorite personal finance book, aside from the Bible, of all time, for sure.
Yeah, man. What's crazy about it is I had a different experience reading R. Nelson Nash's book because the first, I want to say like page 1 through 20, I'm like, this is not it. And and then about halfway through, the book picks up and it's great. It's like, oh wow, this is amazing. And I guess it's because I had already knew kind of about infinite banking. It was boring to me, or whatever the case is. But it was like a repeat of the same stuff. But more importantly, it's like when I first read it, it had so many illustrations and stuff like that I didn't really understand kind of what was going on. But when he brought it to real life examples, like midway through the book, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, I see why this book is actually as great as it is because it's not just talking about your banking problem. It's talking about how you can utilize infinite banking in a real scenario to change your life. So when he used he gave the grandparents retiring. He gave the example of buying cars versus leasing cars and forestry, and I'm like, man, okay, well, this is good. This is what I like. Because I had heard a lot about I came across infinite banking from reading Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery with Brent. And so, I had a pretty good understanding of infinite banking, and I had talked a lot with Jeremiah about it as well. But in terms of the real life examples, that was very much kind of new for me. To see it on paper and kind of how it works. So I was like, okay, wow, yeah, this book is awesome. So yeah, man, if you wouldn't mind, like tell us a couple of things you were able to do. I know when I first came across you, and I'll just go ahead and say, what blew me is I think you were saying, like, you were like, yeah, we paid off some cars, we got out of debt, and so on and so forth. And I was like, it was kind of like how it was with the book. I was like, okay, this is somebody using infinite banking and actually implementing it in a way that changes their life. So for me, that kind of did it for me. I never verbally told you this, but hearing you say that made me get more serious about infinite banking and wanting to use my policies in a more efficient way. So tell us some of the things you've been able to do, and accomplish with your policies.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you letting me know that. That's encouraging, and that's the whole attitude that I've had from the start. And I'll say this about the book, just because you're talking about the parts of the book that maybe didn't mean so much to you, and then some of the parts that did. I always think that's one of the best conversations that you can have with anybody that's been exposed to the idea of becoming your own banker to hear which part or which theme or which aspect of becoming your own banker stuck out to them. And it might have to do with their family situation, might have to do with their professional situation. It's just a neat conversation. So to hear you say that the first 20 pages were kind of making you go glassy eyed or whatever is interesting and funny to me. So my startup, with Infinite Banking, I think was very helpful from the live presentation that I got to see, because one of the examples, and there were many, I mean, it's the infinite banking concept, right? It's like everything's financed one way or another. So you could apply this however you want, but I saw a great debt recapture example in the introductory presentation that I saw, and before you and I end up talking to people on the phone that have also been exposed to the idea that they could become their own banker, it's because they've seen a presentation as well. So for me, that debt recapture example that I saw back in 2015 in a crowded room was very eye-opening, because I was that all-American that R. Nelson Nash describes. We did have the traditionally financed college educations. My wife and I both, she for nursing, me in Spanish. And then we had our car traditionally financed. We had the credit cards. We had it all. We were just that conventional American, family. And I never heard that you could not only just pay off debt, but that you could get the money back. So I just had a lot of aha moments when I saw that presentation. And for us, the animation came from, okay, we're going to not only pay off these debts, but we're going to be building assets at the same time. We're going to be compounding our money. We're going to have a lot of access and control, and don't have to make massive changes to our cash flows. And that's what we did. So we've since 2015, first reading the book, first seeing a presentation. I don't want to go too far forward, but we own 6 policies now, and we started with our very first policy. We started.
You said that was definitely coming up next. I was gonna go ahead though. No, you can keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But it started with one. With one policy, we started paying off student loan debt. Would have been one of the very first things, and because my wife had some and I had some, so we tackled the student loan debt. We don't have any student loan debt now, and we have been practicing, I guess, going on our 9th year now. But we knocked out the student loan debt. We knocked out credit cards. We knocked out the car since then as well, on our vehicle outright. And at some point along the way, of course, we've made a transition to using our policies for other things. I don't know if you'd like me to talk about that now. Family vacations.
Go ahead, because I think people need to understand, like you said, and R. Nelson Nash said inside the book, is we finance everything in life. We either pay interest to somebody else, or we give up the opportunity to earn interest for ourselves. So we're going to finance it through ourselves. We're going to finance it through someone else. Everybody's in the banking system, but not everybody's in the banking business. So yeah, please go ahead.
That's right. I like how you worded that last part. Everybody's participating in some way, but they're just not necessarily owning that business and running that business. That's good. So we did. We made because we wanted to live life, of course. And that's something else that Nash talks about in his book, is like, just, you don't have to start with something extravagant, or especially, financing something that you've never done before. How about if you just started financing the things that you're already doing? We were already paying on debts. We already had those debts. So we began to become our own banker over those debts and pay those off and recapture that. And we wanted to take vacations, for example. That's a real go-to for me, because, starting in 2015, we as a family had decided we wanted to be really intentional about traveling. And, our 2 oldest sons, my wife and I, we've got 3 children. Our 2 oldest sons, for sure, they've already seen most of the 50 states. They've been out of the country a couple of times with us. And every time that we were taking a vacation, we were taking policy loans from where we'd been building up our capital in our first, it would have been 2 policies at that time, when we first transitioned from just paying off debts and recapturing that money to financing lifestyle, items like vacations. We were using our first 2 policies, one on me, one on my wife, to be able to do things like take a a 7-day cruise to Alaska that we wanted to do, and to fly ourselves over to Seattle, Washington, and get on that boat and things like that, and go up, the west coast of Canada and whatnot. So, yeah, we had that transition of just free capturing to also incorporating lifestyle items.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Jesse's children has seen more of the world than you. as, as kids, I'm over here thinking, I'm like 50 states. I'm still trying to get licensed in 50 states. I ain't, let alone go to them. Is so yeah. I mean, I've done some traveling myself, but it's interesting, and I love hearing people, especially when they talk about lifestyle in terms of using their policies. It's important, and that brings me to the next thing of two is, well, you've already kind of told us, you have 6 policies. What was the purpose for you getting more policies later on down the road?
Right. So with the very first policy, we looked at, where we were, what we wanted to do, and we began by paying what was for us, a significant portion of our gross income, even with the very first policy. But still, Robert, it didn't take, 6 months, 8 months, whatever it was. Within a year later, we had a policy on my wife. One, because we're a young married couple looking at having children at that point, and it made sense for both of us to be insured. Yeah. But the kinds of policies that we're interested in are these kinds of policies now. These policies where you've got all that death coverage, it's guaranteed, and everything that you would traditionally look for in a permanent life insurance for your whole life. But we wanted to be able to bank with those dollars as well. So the purpose behind the second policy was both because it made sense for us to get my wife covered, but also we'd been banking for several months at that point, and we wanted to add scale to what we were doing. We caught on to it. We'd read the books, we'd seen the presentations, we paid the premium. But when you start actually banking for yourself, you catch on to this thing. And Nash would commonly say that, and that's just been our experience, that more is caught than taught. So we were catching on to how this was really working, and we wanted to start scaling our system right away. So for those reasons, on the second one, we have 3 other policies, for example, as well, out of that total pool. That's one for each of our children. Each of our children at least has their very first policy. And, we just scaled over time. Like I said, we've been, going on 9 years now, practicing becoming our own banker. And we've just systematically, strategically, based off of how the family's grown, based off of how our, business and capital has grown, built policies one at a time in that fashion.
Yeah, man. It's interesting to hear you say it in that way, because I talk to people on the phone all the time, and I know you do too, right? But I'm telling them, I had a lady, and she turned down a policy that her son got approved for because she couldn't grasp the concept of banking. She wanted so bad for it to be a specific premium, instead of going with the policy that had been approved and just adding more policies as she went along, right? So what I was trying to get her to understand is, though, that policy that you're establishing can be used by yourself, and when you pass away, you've passed on a banking system. You've passed on a banking system to your child, because now they're going to live their adult life, and they're going to start doing some of the things that you've been doing. And by her not taking a policy, what she didn't realize is that you weren't just not getting an insurance policy on your son. You turned down him owning a banking system that would change the trajectory of his life, so that he's not on the phone with me or someone else like myself at your age. Because, well, mom didn't tell me this, or I didn't know that I could start getting back half the money, or, some of the money that I spent my entire lifetime. I ask people all the time, if you had half the money you spent your entire lifetime, would you still be on the phone with me? And they always laugh. It's the first thing I get. They laugh. And then they, well, yeah, no. 99% of people say no. And I tell them, well, that lets me know that you don't have a problem with where you work. It's not that you need a raise at your job. It's not about having a master's degree, starting a business, making some kind of crazy investment. What it's about is you have a banking problem. Just like R. Nelson Nash was saying inside of his book, right? You have a banking problem. And so you don't have control over your finances, and you're not on both sides of the transaction. And so I tell them, hey, well, you can only finance things 3 different ways. You can pay cash, you can swipe a credit card or take a loan from the bank. So the last two ways, you lose that money plus more. In the first way, you're going to give up the cash, in which case it goes back to what me and Jesse were talking about. You give up the opportunity of being able to earn interest on that cash because you've just given it to someone else who now has the financial power. Okay, so they now have your purchasing power and you don't. And with that being said, is I was trying to get her to grasp that concept and understand that when by the time he's a full grown adult, now he's actually spending his economic value. Now he's making money. Now he's trying to retain money and save money and so on and so forth. He can have a system already established by yourself that's already up and running. And more importantly, he can add to that system, put in his wealth, which is then generated and passed down to his descendants. But some people get it, some people don't. We can only hope to help as many people as possible understand exactly why it makes sense. And so that's what I like about what you're saying. And I wanted to have this conversation with you is because I know people think about it one-dimensional, but just from all the different angles that you hit it from, whether it's getting out of debt, increasing your lifestyle, and being able to do more for your family, I think people think infinite banking in terms of an investment. They think about it in terms of an investment, and it has to be used in a particular way. But you're talking about it as an actual banking system, and more importantly, you're building branches to your bank. And that's what I love about it. I think so. Kind of like last but not least, but my follow-up question being, tell me a little bit more about what you were doing before infinite banking, because I tell people that too. Infinite banking is just something that everybody's a part of the banking system, right? But you got doctors, you got lawyers a part of the banking system, you have engineers a part of the banking system, football players, basketball players, right? So this is not who we are. This is just what we do. It's a financial strategy that we use to better our financial lifestyle, and as well as our personal finances. So what were you doing prior to infinite banking, and a little bit more into who Jesse is? Because we worked together, but I realized before I got on this, I was like, do I know Jesse? I don't really know. Do I know Jesse for real? So give me a little bit more background.
We're just on that part of our journey. No, for sure, I will, and I thought about that too. I'm like, we're talking at least probably once a week, real quick, about some business things. But yeah, we're just beginning our journey of getting to know each other. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, and you can hear directly from me. You've already heard some things, but I'm glad that you can ask me the questions that you're interested in asking. And I think that one subject that you were talking about a second ago about what someone's catching on to, or where they're at, or maybe what they're missing. Well, we could have a whole conversation just about that. And Nash points out, I guess, what I would say about that, and then I'll tell you about me is, his whole book is about how people think. Yes, it's about banking. Yes, it's about you can take control. Yes, it's about you can grow a legacy. So many different things. But it's really about how people think. And we just, we do our best to meet people where they are. We walk with the walkers, run with the runners, sprint with the sprinters, right? And I don't know the particulars of that case that you're talking about right there, but when it boils down to it, it's about how you think. It's about how I think, and the folks that we talk to, and we're just trying to help them best we can, of course. Because at the end of the day, that's it. You can become your own banker. The lady that you're talking about, she can become her own banker.
Exactly.
So where I was before I was exposed to the idea that I could become my own banker and started that journey was, I guess right out of college, I went into law enforcement. I was a law enforcement officer in the state of North Carolina. I'd gotten a 4-year degree in Spanish and criminal justice. I double majored. So I spent some years doing, 12-hour shifts and all that kind of thing. It was a lot of fun. It was good experience, good life experience. I took a teaching position. What's that question?
Sorry, I had to interject. You had fun on a 12-hour shift?
Sure. I met great people. It's a challenging occupation, much respect to all the peacekeepers out there that look out for, us Americans. I appreciate it. It was a good experience. I'm very, very thankful for my experience. Now, the 12 hours and night shifts or swing shifts and, every other weekend. So like the schedule part of it, not optimal. And, that was one of the reasons for my transition into education, was because, you've got summers off, you've got weekends off, and it's its own experience. And I enjoyed that. So I taught high school Spanish. I taught Spanish to those that were looking to go to the 4-year experience and needed the introductory levels of Spanish to get started. And I did that for a few years because it was better, time frame for my wife and I looking at starting a family. And we did start a family. We had our first son while I was teaching. But in the same year that our second son was born, I launched a business for myself. So the very year that I saw Infinite Banking, I had this employment background. I'd been nothing but an employee, with the 401k and a state retirement. So like financially speaking, that's all I knew was work hard, save money in these programs that the people that walk out in the front of the room once a year, they tell you about it. Hey, you should be doing this, nest egg, retirement percentages, all this kind of stuff. And when I did end up seeing that introductory presentation to Becoming Your Own Banker, the Infinite Banking concept, one of the questions the guy at the front of the room asked about 401ks in particular that I still remember was, he asked, number one, what do you even know about your 401k? And then he asked us two questions. He said, maybe whether the amount goes up or down every quarter. Maybe you know that. And then he also said, maybe whether you're on some kind of a mild, moderate, or a high risk setting. But even if you know those two things, you don't know anything else about that 401k. And he was right. I did know those two things about myself. I felt like I was paying attention. I really did feel like I was, making the right steps financially speaking to have the golden retirement years ahead of me after, 30, 40 years of not touching my money. I realized at that time, but I thought I was doing all the right and the conventional things, man.
Yeah, Jesse, if I had to get pulled over, I want to get pulled over by you. You seem like I think I get a warning with you. So yeah, but yeah, man, that's it's great to hear your story and how you came to where you're at now. I know you have Durham Talents. I'm going to be leaving some links in the description for you guys, so you can follow Jesse. He's very inspirational, and of course, he's talking about the infinite banking concept. And so I think that you need to hear from as many people as possible because it's not called infinite for no reason. So, Jesse, man, I don't want to hold you on too long. I appreciate it. I know we had some scheduling conflicts, but finally was able to get you on, and I hope that you're here inside of South Carolina at some point in time. And I also will contact you when I come through to North Carolina as well. I come through there often, so I'll be sure to reach out to you on my way through and see if we can't connect. Guys, I appreciate you for watching this episode all the way through to the end. We're definitely going to be having some cash prizes and giveaways. Remember that we are on the track to 500 subscribers, so make sure you subscribe and leave a comment, like, share the video. I look forward to picking out somebody from the 500 subscribers really soon here in the near future and having that cash giveaway as well as prizes. Like I said, Jesse, like I said, I'll leave some links in the description for you. And I appreciate you being on, man. Without further ado, I want to also introduce to you the idea that we could possibly do some kind of podcasting, because I know, like I said, you got the Durham Talents. Maybe we can do some kind of motivational podcasting at some point in time.
I'd be happy to have another conversation with you, brother. And same thing on you coming up into North Carolina. We'll grab lunch together, and yeah, we'll get together and have our next conversation. We'll line it up.
Thank you, man. Thank you for being on. I appreciate you. I know the audience will appreciate you as well. Links will be inside the descriptions. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and share this video. And until the next video, better investments equals a better future. And I see you guys in the next one.